Did Plato really moonlight as Atlantis' first travel blogger, scribbling lost cities with the zest of a hype-hungry influencer? Picture this. Plato, lounging in a toga, feet propped on a scroll, firing off posts like, "You won't believe what popped up beyond the Pillars of Hercules." # deep thoughts, # underwater utopia. Before you saddle up your dolphin for a quick plunge to sunken paradise, let's swim through the seaweed and separate myth from Mediterranean muddle. Many take Plato's Atlantis tales as hard-hitting journalism, a lost civilization exposé hot off the press. But here's the catch. Plato's only source on Atlantis is Plato. Both Timaeus and Critias are dialogues, his go-to recipe for mixing fact, fancy, and philosophical fog thick enough to make even Socrates dizzy. Expecting a literal Atlantis from Plato is like hunting Narnia behind every closet door. You'll find disappointment and maybe some mothballs. In truth, no ancient Greek historian, not a single stylus-wielding Athenian scribe, utters a word about Atlantis outside Plato's scripts. If Atlantis were the scoop of the millennium, ancient Twitter, aka every citizen with clay tablets, would be buzzing nonstop. Instead, the feeds are silent. Atlantis, the original clickbait, brought to you by Plato. So what's the real deal? Scholars agree Atlantis was more thought experiment than travel diary, a pointed critique of Athens wrapped in layers of allegory, and a wink. As the story goes, Plato coyly adds, sidestepping blame for ancient real estate rumors. Rather than GPS coordinates, Atlantis is Plato's cautionary tale, a utopia too good and too watery to be true. If you're still itching to find Atlantis, pack a snorkel and a hefty dose of skepticism. Just remember, don't trust everything you read in a 2,400-year-old blog. Following Plato's account, some argue that archaeological findings lend credibility to Atlantis' existence. Ready your shovels. Some folks claim archaeology has finally dug up Atlantis. Yes, the original lost city, historically glimpsed only by clairvoyants, optimistic billionaires, and at least one cartoonish sea captain with a penchant for dramatic entrances. The legend of Atlantis fuels countless treasure hunters, armed with goggles, unshakable optimism, and the firm belief that one day Google Maps will add a cozy little pin labeled Sunken Continent. Here's the popular tale. Archaeologists have discovered irrefutable proof, ruined cities, mysterious tablets, even a signature trident or two, perfect for documentary close-ups and breathless YouTube narrations. Every slightly submerged stone platform suddenly becomes headline bait. Breaking, Atlantis confirmed. The dream? A doormat that proudly reads, "Welcome to Atlantis. Tridents mandatory." But what does real archaeology say? Spoiler, the professionals haven't uncovered any monogrammed Atlantean champagne flutes or anything that screams, Atlantis. Finds like the Bimini Road or the spectacular ruins of Santorini often get stretched into mythical proportions. Science, it turns out, is less Indiana Jones and more skeptical eyebrow. The only underwater artifact I've ever brought back is my phone after an ill-advised pool selfie. The punchline? Professional archaeologists, defined by degrees, not fedoras or pirate maps, haven't authenticated a single Atlantean relic. Ancient underwater structures span the globe from Japan to the Caribbean, but being old and submerged doesn't automatically upgrade them to Atlantis status. Otherwise, my childhood Hot Wheels collection might qualify as a lost civilization. So while the quest for Atlantis attracts heroic volunteers and endless clickbait, science demands something sturdier than wishful thinking. The mystery remains unsolved, unless the evidence is hiding behind Bigfoot, who's busy riding the Loch Ness Monster. These findings have led many to pinpoint Atlantis' location as near Greece. Move over, Santorini. Atlantis isn't your typical Mediterranean getaway. No catamaran tours, and 0 infinity pools boasting a sunken view. Everyone loves picturing Atlantis lounging off Greece's coast, sipping ouzo, inventing democracy, and definitely winning toga contests. It's like the lost city checked into a cycladic Airbnb and just overstayed its welcome. But the real mastermind behind this mythical timeshare? Plato, the ancient philosopher who, quite conveniently, planted Atlantis smack dab in his philosophical backyard. Talk about prime real estate. His tale launched 1,000 academic expeditions and twice as many documentaries, with modern treasure hunters insisting Atlantis must be the ruins of Minoan Crete or volcanic leftovers from Thera. If Atlantis really sank near Santorini, wouldn't there be at least one beachside tavern offering mermaid happy hour and trident rentals by the hour? Here's where the legend leaks a little water. Plato's original story wasn't exactly a travel brochure. The island was a utopia, a thought experiment, not a destination. When geologists and archaeologists dive in, pun intended, they come up empty. No grand palaces, no mysterious statues, not even a stray amphora. Despite Hollywood's CGI wizardry, much of the Atlantis hype floats on wishful thinking and a serious shortage of ancient snorkeling selfies. So if proximity to Greece earns legendary status, Atlantis is just another sunseeker who missed the last ferry to Athens, the eternal punchline of every Greek island adventure. Maybe Atlantis exists, but don't count on finding it on your travel app anytime soon. Its proximity to Greece also suggests that Atlantis was an advanced civilization that possibly influenced neighboring cultures. Imagine Elon Musk and Cleopatra co-hosting a pool party, and history promptly losing the address. Welcome to Atlantis, the legendary lost city that's equal parts bedtime story, conspiracy forum favorite, and that cringe-worthy season of every explorer reality show. Atlantis, the OG lost city tucked somewhere between your wildest daydreams and a History Channel rerun. You know the myth. A sparkling, high-tech utopia where chariots levitated, fountains ran on solar power, and Plato's toga was probably Bluetooth-enabled. Thanks to Plato's dialogues, generations have let their imaginations and cable specials run wild. He dropped a tale about Atlantis, and suddenly, everyone's convinced the ancient Greeks had Wi-Fi. Move over, Olympus. Mount Ruder was the real hotspot. So what's the reality check? Atlantis gets credited with everything from underwater lasers to anti-gravity blimps, and I'm guessing, waterproof mascara. Meanwhile, actual ancient civilizations were hauling rocks, not binge-watching Netflix underwater. Egyptians built pyramids, but there's zero evidence mummies were surfing the web. If Atlanteans were that advanced, you'd think they'd at least back up their data before the flood. Archaeologists have spent decades knee-deep in mud and pottery shards, not digging up Atlantean laser guns, unfortunately. Every unearthed spoon reminds us, real progress takes centuries, not a single apocalyptic splash. Maybe our obsession with lost super-tech civilizations reveals less about history and more about wishful thinking. Here's the punchline. Plato, philosopher, not TV writer, was probably spinning a moral allegory, not pitching the pilot for Ancient Aliens Underwater Edition. Atlantis isn't lost. It simply never RSVP'd to reality's pool party. However, this advanced society allegedly met its end through a sudden natural catastrophe. Well, wouldn't you know it? Atlantis didn't just pull a Houdini for the thrill of it. Pop culture's got us thinking the lost city was one day here, the next day gone, like that sock you swear went into the dryer but vanished into another dimension. Hollywood doesn't do slow decline or decades of bad decisions. It's always one cataclysmic night with more tidal waves than a badly planned pool party. For centuries, mythologies had Atlantis swallowed by the sea in a blink, as if someone tripped over Earth's giant red off switch. If Atlantis really disappeared overnight, Amazon Prime would have struggled to deliver the rescue boats on time. One minute you're living in architectural paradise, the next, you're Neptune's new open-concept underwater Airbnb. But let's hand the mic to science for a reality check. Real disasters, tsunamis, earthquakes rarely stick to primetime schedules. And despite our craving for civilization-sized plot twists, there's no geological Yelp review marking a sudden Atlantis-style dunk. If Plato's city got washed out, apparently no one left a 5 stars would not recommend in the sediment. Here's the biggest twist. Plato wasn't scripting a disaster blockbuster. His Atlantis story was more allegorical cautionary tale than box office smash. Catastrophes that wipe out civilizations? Sure, they happen, just not in isolated headline-grabbing episodes. Think global trends, not solo disappearing acts. So if Atlantis ever existed, its end probably looked less like a kaboom and more like a slow-motion faceplant. Questionable real estate choices, chronic flood insurance neglect, and maybe forgetting to keep that Continental Stability subscription current. Sorry, apocalypse enthusiasts, sometimes history just waters down the drama. Some theories even propose that extraterrestrial beings were involved in Atlantis' construction or downfall. Imagine E.T. trading his spaceship for an ancient Greek toga, raising a cosmic finger and asking, "Home?" But this time, he's not phoning Earth. He's searching for Atlantis and maybe a snack of olives. Popular lore, at least if you binge enough late-night documentaries, insists Atlantis wasn't just a sunken city, but an interstellar Airbnb run by aliens. That's right. The legend claims extraterrestrials either built Atlantis or at least installed the underwater Wi-Fi, leaving us eternally buffering on their cosmic contractors' mysteries. Hollywood and a league of pseudo-historians have hawked this alien architect theory for decades. Apparently, if aliens didn't build the pyramids, they just shrugged and moved on. First stop, pyramids. Second stop, underwater penthouse. Atlantis is the pilot episode of HGTV's Galactic Property Brothers, starring guys who never need ladders because they just hover. But before you start dialing NASA to inquire about Atlantean landlords, let's keep our feet and facts wet. The myth probably bubbles up from Plato's vivid account of Atlantis' extravagant tech: rings of canals, dazzling palaces, and fountains that likely squirted something a bit fancier than lemon water. Yet sift through ancient Greek texts, and you won't find a single mention of little green men, flying saucers, or Martian architects with a flair for Doric columns. The archaeological record? Totally terrestrial. No ray guns, zero warp drives, just good old Mediterranean tools and craftsmanship. Plato spun Atlantis as a cautionary tale about human pride, not an early UFO sighting. So let's tuck the alien architect theory where it belongs, right next to Bigfoot's vacation selfies. The real mystery isn't which planet built Atlantis. It's what these tales reveal about us, our endless curiosity and talent for cosmic exaggeration. Proponents point to cryptic clues scattered around the globe as evidence of this otherworldly connection. Picture ancient astronauts sneakily stashing clues about Atlantis in IKEA manuals. Because if you want something lost for millennia, hide it between the Allen wrenches and the word Fjolnir. Honestly, people have been spotting secret signs of Atlantis scattered worldwide like loose screws in a flat-pack coffee table. From Egypt's towering pyramids to Stonehenge's celestial puzzle, every mysterious relic older than shrink-wrapped cheese gets hitched to the Atlantis hype train. If it's tough to build and still standing after 4 centuries, bam! It's basically an Atlantis billboard. Of course, the wilder claims get, the older the relic seems. Strange carvings? Obvious Atlantean graffiti. Cryptic maps? Treasure road maps, obviously. Some theorists stretch ancient sea tales so thin, Poseidon himself would file a libel lawsuit. By their logic, Atlantis clues should be stuffed inside my sock drawer too, just waiting for a History Channel deep dive. But wait, it gets better. Pop culture treats every blurry satellite photo, ancient doodle, or reluctantly wiped cafe table like it's a neon sign flashing Plato's playground this way. Some folks see sunken cities in Google Earth fuzz. I just see my Wi-Fi dropping out again. Here's the kicker. Solid scientific evidence for Atlantean breadcrumbs? Still MIA, like that one IKEA screw you swear vanished into the void, and like Atlantis itself, probably lost forever. Yet the modern treasure hunt keeps marching on. In the end, this says less about ancient superpowers and more about the sheer power of human imagination, preferably with the world's most complicated instruction manual, a handful of leftover wood pegs, and enough conspiracy theories to build your own mythical civilization. Today, these mysterious hints fuel a modern fascination with Atlantis, often popularized by Hollywood. Is it just me, or does every blockbuster these days feature someone scuba diving into ancient ruins wielding a CGI trident bigger than their paycheck? Move over, Greek philosophers. The world's wettest lost city has been Hollywood-jacked, leaving Plato and the conspiracy crew looking suspiciously parched. Once upon a time, Atlantis belonged to 2 groups, toga-wrapped thinkers who loved a good allegory, and folks hoarding tinfoil hats alongside VHS tapes of wildly questionable documentaries. Then Hollywood caught the underwater treasure scent, and now Atlantis can't sneeze without a green screen explosion or Jason Momoa flexing on a CGI seahorse. Subtle allegories? Forget it. Each new flick floods the screen harder than my basement after a monsoon. But let's be honest. This tidal wave isn't about dusty Plato dialogues or philosophical deep dives. Nope, it's all profits and popcorn, not Platoon and Phaedrus. You can blame social media too. TikTok is drowning in fan theories. Was Atlantis on Mars? Is SpongeBob the secret heir? Studio execs can't resist riding that wave. The box office loves a good mystery, especially when it involves glowing orbs and at least one chance to watch Jason Momoa surf a digital dolphin. Atlantis now has more screen time than historical evidence, though Aquaman's probably tired of these soaking wet scripts. So as Atlantis mania keeps cresting, it signals less a revival of ancient wisdom and more a 21st century escapism tsunami. Who's diving in next? Indiana Jones or SpongeBob? At this rate, I'm just praying we don't get Atlantis, the musical. But if we do, you can bet we'll be front row, soggy popcorn in hand.